our audio clear? Let me see confirmation from your end. If our audio is reaching you well, okay, thank you so much. From a number of you, you have confirmed Nyang'ao and Omudo there, Kasure, Owino, Rob, Naftali and Jacob Simiu, Abiero Winnie. Thank you so much for that confirmation. So I will go ahead and share the document that we are looking at. Now, this is a continuation of our previous session because there are a few concepts that we did not look at from our what is actually our topic 2. And so we looking at the same document that we used previously, but going to a new area in the document. So let me get hold of the document and share. All right, the system seems to be working fast, and so we expect it to load quickly there. So it's coming up. So we still looking at the theories, and the document seems to be displaying, but again, is helpful if you can confirm if the document is displaying, then I will expand it. So let me see a confirmation from your end that the document is already displaying, so that we can be able to continue being aware that we all are seeing the document. Right, seeing a bit of a challenge there. The document seems to not to show properly through. So let me, I may be forced to load it again. Yes, let me load it again. Seems to be some challenge trying to do a zoom, and it seems not to do the zoom. So let me try to do the process again. All right, let me try to do the zoom. This time we see whether it will show correctly. Right now it's expanding. It's expanding well. All right, so yes, I'm still, although I have had to do that process again, but yes, I would appreciate if somebody can confirm that the document is displaying on your end, so I don't assume that it is there and maybe it is not showing. Now that we are communicating from a distance, it's good for me to know that what I expect is happening on your end. That's to see the document displaying on your end. So a confirmation, you can do a chat, so I'm aware of that. Otherwise, we are looking at the same document, but we're looking at some of the areas that we not cover previously. And that is, we're still looking at these theories and perception issues related to the human factor that needs to be considered when the interaction is being designed, when we are designing for interaction. What are the issues that are part of the human experience, which we need to make, we need to focus on to guide us in coming up with a good design of the interaction. This is a human-computer interaction. As we say, the human-computer interaction has 3 components. There is a human, there is a computer, and there is an interaction itself. And these 3 components, we are bringing them together so that there is a issue of the designing of the interaction and making sure that the interaction is effective. And the interaction needs to be effective, and that calls for a careful design and engineering. It's a concept that we have been highlighting about usability, that the user will sense that that interaction has been effective, has been satisfying. The user is happy that just being at the computer, they don't feel like they don't want to be at the computer next time, or at least whatever the goal that is bringing the user at the computer, they are being able to accomplish it efficiently, in a way that is satisfying. They are not struggling to do certain things that they want to accomplish. Of course, we must accept that this is a human, something that is being done by a human, and so long as it is not perfect. So we're not saying that there won't be challenges here and there, but there are certain challenges, of course, that are acceptable. But that's where we need to keep improving whatever we are calling this interaction design. And so what are some of the theories that guide in trying to achieve a usable system, a system or an interaction that has high usability. So we look at the remaining part of this document. So let me scroll down to where we are. We talked about, of course, I've already scrolled down. Where we are, he is talking about how to ensure the meaningfulness of commands. And we talked about how to deal with the issue of meaningfulness of icons and all that. We have already looked at these. We also did highlight one of the experience, or one of the issues that we come about when it comes to the human, is that there is the issue of multitasking. The human want to do some multitasking, but then this multitasking, and there is also interruptions. These are some of the issues that the user may experience. His or her desire to do some multitasking, but also interruptions that come once in a while. So how do we also take these into consideration during the designing of the interaction? And these are areas that we actually did mention. Even when it comes to the perception, we talked about the constructivist theory, as well as the ecological theory, and their contribution to the design of the interaction. What are some of the issues that we need to consider, or even to make a opportunity of. We take the opportunity of some of the behaviors or some of the way human perceive, and we talked about the perceiving. The five senses is the main way that the user interacts with the world around him or her. And so we therefore also emphasize on the concept of Gestalt, laws of perceptual organization, which we say these researchers, they lean towards a constructivist concept. They are constructivists, and we did highlight some of the statements that they have come up with, and which also are used to guide the design of the interaction. And so we highlighted all these, the concept of proximity, the concept of closure, continuation, similarity. So these we highlighted last time. Although I asked you to read on that, I will also not go back to that. But so read again, just in case you are forgetting a bit of that. Read again and capture or grasp fully the descriptions of those particular concepts. And the implications of Gestalt laws, maybe that one we could start from there as we move on. So for the implications, it says that people may assume that items that look alike do the same thing. For example, they may assume that blue text might be assumed to be links. I remember you actually dealt with this a bit, but let's just recap there. People may also assume that items that are positioned close together are related. If they are not, and of course they may be separated a bit, but several of them are close together. And so how can that help us in designing for the interaction? People may not follow sharp edges or jagged positioning of items. So that's an issue there. So the human wants, for things to be close. Of course, they should not be having this type of system. If they are lined up in a certain pattern, a smooth pattern, that's what we're saying. The human perception is that they seem to be grouped together. They seem to be belonging together. And so another issue there is that we should we normally look for familiar items, or at least in designing we should look for things that are familiar. In designing for the interaction, or whoever is designing should do the best they can and look for familiar items. In other words, they look for things that the human is already familiar with. If those are the ones that you use to design for the interaction, then we are likely to, it's likely to make it easier for the user to follow and be quickly learn how to use the interface, because it's the main thing here will be the interface. All right, so we actually did look at this form, and we said some of the applications of those laws, of course, they are trying to do them here. Of course, it's also a comparison and saying, now, if this is a form that you are filling, which one looks like it is trying to apply some of these concepts for designing the interaction, or basically we can talk about the user interface. So which of these seem to be the best in terms of trying to capture and make it easier for the user to work with this form. So if you found a form on maybe on the website, or maybe in a program, which of these would be the best design. And so now I'll let you just continue to look at this and make some kind of comparison and see which one do you think seems to be the best in terms of designing for the interaction, or at least which one seems to be approaching some of the concepts that we are learning that would make designing for a user interface, for example, better. And so we continue to look at the those two theories. Of course, the Gesott law is more constructivist, and then ecological theory, we say what are some of the how do we benefit from some of the concepts that come from the ecological approach or ecological theory, and we emphasize the concept of affordance or affordances. So affordance, we say it is a clue, is something, is an attribute, is a property within an object that gives a clue to a user as to how it should be operated. And that is one of the key contribution that come from the concept of the theory, the ecological theories just we talk about the ecological theory, what is its contribution to the design of the interaction, and we are emphasizing that one of the main contribution is the concept of affordance. So affordance is a factor of usability. So that's one of the key contribution that ecological theory brings out. And of course, there are some more discussions there, which I will leave that you look at that more closely. The issue of knowledge is just a small additional text here, which I don't think I need to emphasize anything there, but make sure that you also look at that. And so I want to just take us to the next two concepts here. One is based on this structure called a Norman, and he came up with what is called the Norman's curves of execution and evaluation. Norman's curves of execution and evaluation. And in this area here, with Norman, what he came up with is also presented in a diagram form. But let me just read a bit of this. It says that to get something done, you have to start with some notion of what is wanted, the goal that is to be achieved. Then you have to do something to the world, that is, take action to move yourself or manipulate someone or something. Finally, you check to see what your goal you check to see that your goal was made or was achieved. So there are four different things to consider: the goal, what is done to the world itself, and the checking of the world. The action itself has two major aspects: doing something and checking. And we can call this execution and evaluation. And that is represented in a diagram form down here. I don't know whether this, I keep forgetting to check. I'm using a computer that doesn't run Microsoft. Well, the trick is showing the diagram. So it's a trick, you can read this Microsoft document. So this diagram captures one end of the system that Norman is talking about. This one captures the part of the execution. Remember, he said it is doing and checking. So there is execution and evaluation. So this diagram, this part of the diagram captures the side of the execution, what happens as on the execution part of the system, the execution part of the system. So this is what it shows. That, so we actually talk about the 7 steps in the No Man's Gap of execution. And so with execution, we have the 4 of them. Well, essentially, the way the diagram is here is actually 5 of them. So there is a forming the goal, then forming the intention to act. So we need to decide so how what needs to be done in order to achieve the goal. And then, of course, you need to decide now those actions. How will they be sequenced? What do you start with, and how do you proceed on? And so you continue, and then so once that is done, of course, it may not be a case of waiting and doing one thing. All this may happen within a very short time. So sequence of actions, sometimes we may actually be considering the sequence of actions as you do the execution of some. But anyway, for the sake of the diagram, so we form the goal, we form what is called the intention to act. So in other words, you need to come to that moment and they develop a kind of a working statement as to what you want to achieve. So intention to act. Decide on a sequence of actions. So what should they take you to the goal? And then, of course, you go ahead and execute those actions to the world. Of course, the world is whatever you are intending to work on. So if it is driving a car, so the car now is what you want to drive. Car, so that would be the car at that point is your world. But it can also be whatever you be, having to, operate within the car. Again, you can also reduce the concept of the world to just what you are operating on. Maybe one time you are operating on the steering wheel, some other time you are doing the braking, etc. So the world may not necessarily be the whole of the car. It could also be reduced to just whatever objects that you are using to do the controlling of the car. But anyway, so we have to form a goal. So what we want to do, then develop a kind of a statement. It could be mental, of course. Most of the time, it's a mental statement as to what you want to accomplish. Of course, it's like you are now deciding that you need to do something. So decide what do I need to do in order to achieve the goal, a sequence of actions, and then of course you go ahead and execute those actions to whatever you are operating on. And then so we go now to the other half of the diagram, which completes now the whole graph of execution and graph of evaluation. So for the evaluation side, we have this other diagram here, which comprises actually, yes, we have all right, so we are not counting the world in the 7 steps. So we have 4 on the side of the execution, and we have 4 on the side of evaluation. Sorry, I think I need to use a different way to bring this one up here. So this is the other side of this is the side of the evaluation. So once you have acted on the world is whatever you are operating on, or whatever object you need to do, work on as part of accomplishing some goal. Then so that's the world. Then also once you have done the execution of your actions, then you look at whether your goal is achieved, and that is what now we are checking on. These are the world, and of course you are evaluating the state of the world. So what you wanted to happen, has it happened? And so you do these actions on this side as a part of your or part of the evaluation side of the whole process. So perceive the state of the world, of course, so you are checking the world. Interpret the perception, interpret that state of the world. What does it mean about the goal that you wanted to accomplish? And finally, of course, you evaluate the evaluation of the interpretations, where now you decide whether your goal is achieved or not. So these 7 steps in the Norman's GAV of execution and evaluation, the 7 steps of Norman's GAV of execution and evaluation. So there is some text here, of course, that takes us through that. But since I've already said most of that, I will not go through the text, but it takes us through the meaning of this whole concept, Norman's GAV of evaluation, of execution and evaluation. So look at that later and try to go through them slowly. Maybe I was a little fast, but I think I've already tried to explain the same. So let me not go back to that. So these up to number 4 gives us the execution side of the process, while the number 5 to 7, they should be below the diagram here, gives us the evaluation part of the 7 steps. And then this diagram can also be put together to form just one diagram, and that is given here now, where we have both GAVs, what we are calling the GAV of execution and the GAV of evaluation, and then you put them together, then they form this diagram here, which you can see. So when you put the 2 parts together, because of course it is a one complete process to do the GAV of execution and GAV of evaluation. But we are using the word GAV. So GAV, of course, is not exactly the same as a gap, but we can look at it as a kind of a gap between what the system has and what the user want to accomplish, the goal of the user. What is the goal of the user? And does this system provide that goal to the user? So what does what does the system have, or maybe let's say, what does the system not have, which may make the user not to accomplish their goal satisfactorily? And then there is also the question of, and that would be the GAV of execution. But there is also the other side to say, now, what does the system have that the user is not being able to notice as far as the system is concerned, and also in terms of the user being able to accomplish their goal. In other words, what does the system have that the user is not noticing and as far as the goal is concerned? And that becomes a GAV of evaluation. But there are some statements here which maybe you can read just to try and understand the concept of the GAVs. And the GAVs, some statements are given here. And so it says that the GAVs explicate the gaps that exist between the user and the interface or the system, or whatever you are trying to operate. So the GAVs explicate or stands for the gaps that exist between the user and the interface. And the GAV of evaluation says it's the amount of effort. It is the amount of effort a user must exert to interpret the physical state of the system. So how much effort does the user have to use in order to understand the system and use it, in the easiest way possible? This is a concept of easy to learn, easy to understand. So what may be lacking in at achieving that concept of easy to learn, easy to use, and all those other usability issues? So how big is that gap? So the effort a user must exert to interpret the physical state of the system and how well the expectations and intentions have been met. And then, of course, there is a graph of execution. And it says the graph of execution is the difference between the user's goals and what the system allows them to do. So the user's goal, the difference between the user's goals and what the system allows them to do. So it describes how directly the actions can be accomplished. So the graph of execution. So what is different? So the user has some goals, but what does the system allow them to do? So that gives the graph of execution. And so this also is an important concept in designing the, now we say designing the interaction, although most of these has to do with the user interface, but we need to always take those two apart. That although the main interaction is about the user interface, but we need also to consider other issues around the interaction beyond the user interface. But most of the concepts here are mainly to be applied in designing the user interface as far as the computer is concerned. All right, so what are some of the practical the applications, the practical applications of Norman's graphs? And it says that in terms of the design questions, we can ask ourselves some of these. So the seven stages of action prompt the following design questions. For example, how easily can one determine the function of the device? How quickly can one determine the function of the device? And or tell what actions are possible, or determine mapping from intention to physical movement, or how easily can one perform the action, etc. So some issues that can guide us when we are doing, so this is like doing an evaluation. So when you come around a device and you want to do an evaluation of its usability, so these are some of the questions that can guide one to do the evaluation. But this, of course, is based on Norman's graph of evaluation and execution concept. And that, of course, coming from that, it can also brings us also to the issues about usability. Again, principles of good design. Some of the issues that come directly from looking at the concepts that are raised in Norman's graphs of execution and evaluation are some of these issues that we call principles of good design. But some of these, we have already looked at them when we are looking also at factors of usability. And so I don't intend to describe them in much detail because we have already looked at these concepts previously. The concept of visibility, and says that by looking, the user can tell the state of the device and the alternatives for action. So what is possible with this device? What is possible? What is possible as far as what I can see or what I can perceive? What is possible to be done when using this particular device? And of course, for this, maybe I can highlight maybe in looking at the computer, we're saying when you go to a computer and you are looking at the user interface, we say now, what is your goal? First of all, what is your goal? And when you look at your computer, what seems like it's possible to do with that computer, with that user interface, in order for you to achieve your goal for coming to work at the computer? What looks possible there? Now, however you may be able to answer that question, will tell whether the visibility of that device is well designed, the visibility aspect. So it may be, if it is you are not able to tell where to start in accomplishing your goal, then probably that user interface is not very well designed. It may not have good visibility, of the visibility part of the device has not has not been designed the right way, or at least it's not. It requires some improvement. So visibility, of course, as I said, these words we've come across them again, and of course they are still using the same. They still hold the same meaning, and therefore I don't intend to discuss it, but just for the sake of highlighting them. So we have the visibility. We need also to have a good conceptual model as a principle, a good conceptual model. And it says there the designer provides a good conceptual model for the user with consistency in the presentation of operations and results and a coherent, consistent system image. So there needs to be some kind of a consistency in terms of looking at how you have interacted with similar devices before, or similar applications. In this case, when it's a computer, similar applications, or when you did a similar, we wanted to achieve a similar goal. Now the system, are you able to see a consistency whenever you want to accomplish that goal in a system? So there's also the principle of good mappings there. Good mappings, so that's also important. The issue of feedback. So we have good mappings. There is a feedback. Right, the user should receive full and continuous feedback about the results of actions. So feedback is important. I think this one is quite a simple concept to remember. We always get, or most of the applications have a lot of feedback. Like when you click, you want to delete an item. Normally, you're likely to see a message displayed on the screen. So a message, of course, is a part of this concept of feedback, and it's asking you, are you sure you want to delete? That's the feedback, so that you are now aware of the results of the action that you have made. Okay, affordance. We have already talked about the affordance. So you notice that here these principles that are listed here is just a kind of repetition of some things that you have already come across, and so we should be able to understand them better. So issue of simplicity, of course, we should always try to do to make the device you utilize the concept of simplicity when designing the interaction. So as it says there, frequently access the functions should be easily accessible. So that is one of the ways of making the whole concept of interaction to be as simple as possible. Availability, of course, again, says that since the recognition is always better than a recall, an efficient interface should always provide cues and visual elements to relieve the user from memory load necessary to recall the functionality of the system. So we did highlight this concept of avoiding memory load. We want the system to remind the user rather than the user scratching their head to remember. So there should be something at the interface that is part of the of this device that reminds the user about certain things. For instance, how to accomplish even the goal, how to accomplish the goal, what actions the user should take to accomplish the goal. So some of those should be appearing at the interface to remind the user rather than the user scratching their head to remember. That's what we are calling the memory load. Avoid, make it as much as possible the user to be reminded by the system rather than the user having to scratch their head. But of course, as we said, this design is being done by a human. It is not perfect. And so, of course, we don't expect a perfect system in everything. Of course, there will be some limitations that will not make it possible to do certain things that these principles are bringing out. But of course, that is our focus. So these principles should be our focus when doing the design of the interaction. Then we have another section here is talking about principles and rules. So just trying to kind of guide us. Again, they're just guiding us as far as designing for the interaction, and especially looking at the user. Now, remember, we have always to start at the user. The human is the user. So the human, we need to think about the human as we do the interaction. Whatever else we may do to the system, that should be guided by us first understanding the user. And so this part, I think I don't have to read that, please, but look at it, just capture it as a part of understanding all these principles and theories, but also as we look at the human and understand the human as we think of the designing of the interaction. And as I've just repeated, when it comes to the computer, most of these have to do with the user interface. Now, there are two other concepts or guidelines of designing for the interaction, which are based on one is based on this a researcher called Shneiderman, and we talk about the Shneiderman's 8 golden rules of course, I put in brackets of good interface design. So these are golden rules. They are rules. They are actually principles. They are guidelines to guide us when we are designing for interaction. But once you do, once somebody has done a device which is to be used by a human, we can also use these rules to evaluate, to do the evaluation and say, how is the usability of this particular device? I can use these rules to evaluate the device in terms of its usability level. Now, this Shneiderman's 8 golden rules of good interface design. Again, I will leave this to the student to look through these rules and make sure that you understand these 8 golden rules, what they say. A lot of it is repeated from some principles that we have said, but now it is good to capture it from the perspective of these being something different. You know, Shneiderman's 8 golden rules. So you'll find that a number of the principles that we have already highlighted from the text within this good document are repeated, and so it should be easy for you to follow and be able to explain. Of course, you need to read and try to understand fully the Shneiderman's 8 golden rules of good interface design. Now, the other section, or the other, is also another approach to looking at usability. Now, remember, of course, the researchers, as you know, an issue may be researched by different people and groups, and so these are different researchers working on the same concept, the issue of usability. And there is another one here, another gentleman called Nielsen, who developed what is called Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics. Now, heuristic is also rules again. It's still rules. So, Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics, and here I've put in brackets. This was actually focusing on web design. Web design in terms of the look and feel of the user interface on a web page. When you look at the web page, what are some of the issues that we need to look at to have in mind as we design for the in this case let's just say the page as it looks, the web page as it looks, but of course especially those part of the sections where you intend that the user is going to interact with, especially the input, if there is input. But of course, one of the things that we know about the websites is about the user being able to navigate around and move from one part. So, for example, if there is the ZTech University website, of course, there are different parts of the system that you have to navigate around. So how easily are we able to navigate around a web page, and of course moving from one page to another page, things like that. So this focuses more on web design, but the concepts are still very similar to other other thoughts, or those that are brought out by other authors and researchers. And so you find that, again, some of the issues that we have already talked about will also be repeated here. But again, of course, this is a different perspective, looking at the usability. And so it is very important that, again, I will let the student to look at this, read through, and make sure that you understand these concepts from the perspective of Nielsen. So what does Nielsen say about usability, especially of the web, but generally of any interaction, any user interface, etc. And so we have Nielsen's 10 usability heuristics, which I would like you to read and make sure that you are able to explain if it is asked any time. You will be able to bring out the heuristics as well as explaining what they mean. So if there's a number one there, it talks about visibility of the system status. If you remember, we just talked about something like that from the other section of Snyderman, something about the status, the system status. So it says that the system should always keep users informed about what is going on through appropriate feedback within a reasonable time. Probably the two most important things that users need to know are, where am I and where can I go next? So those type of issues. So that's capturing them from Nielsen. So there is visibility, there is a match between system and the real world, the issue of user control and freedom, consistency of standards, etc. So look at this as well and try to capture these 10 heuristics, Nielsen's 10 heuristics. As I said, most of them do correspond to what others say, but they may be described differently. So number 5, the error prevention. Number 6, recognition rather than recall. So this brings us back to the concept of reducing memory load. So we talk about knowledge in the world versus knowledge in the head. So avoid too much of knowledge in the head. Avoid the user having to do too much of knowledge in the head. Let it be knowledge in the world. Now, knowledge in the world is what is in the device. So what is in the device that reminds the user about something related to the goal that the user wants to accomplish when they come to the device. So that is the knowledge in the world. So put as much as possible to be knowledge in the world. Put as much of what the user needs to remember on the device. Let the device remind the user rather than, so the knowledge in the head is when the user is scratching their head to remember. So that is the knowledge in the head. So when it comes to talking about recognition rather than recall, so recall is that the user is trying to recall from their memory, but the recognition is by perceiving the world. The user is reminded of certain things that they can do with that can enable them to accomplish their goal when using the device. And so as I said, some of these are actually repeated, but in different ways. They may be called differently, but you'll find there is there is a match between what the other authors have said. When you come from the Norman to when you come to Snyderman, you come to Newsen, and of course the others that we had said earlier on that relate to about the issue of memory and the other things. You find that there is quite a repetition of some of these concepts. So look at this. Maybe I can highlight this one of number 8. Says aesthetic and minimalist design, and it says the dialogues should not contain information which is irrelevant or rarely needed. Every extra unit of information in a dialogue competes with the relevant units of information and diminishes the relative visibility. Now, essentially, what this one is saying is that, for example, when you look at a screen in front of you, the user interface that you are looking at some point, if there is too much of things there, too much clouding with the information and these icons and all that, and then it diminishes the visibility. So the less you can put at the interface, the better. So that's brings us to the concept of minimalist design. Put as minimal, what you put at the user interface should be as minimal as possible. But remember, as I said, of course, we are not perfect in doing this, trying to do the usability. And so there is a competition, of course, with the space as well. So although we say, okay, put as little as possible, but then we have, again, to balance between the two, between putting too little and the issue of how much space do we have. And then you find that sometimes we cannot put too little. Again, that may be a problem when it comes now to what we need to do for the system to be complete. But anyway, now number 7 talks about flexibility and efficiency of use. And what brings me here is some of these words that are stated here. It says accelerators. Says unseen. Now there's what we call accelerators. That's what we're saying. A device has something called accelerators. You say these are unseen by novice user. Accelerators are normally not seen. They are unseen by novice user. But accelerators may often speed up the interaction for the expert user. So make sure that you also consider the expert user. So some things that may be at the user interface may really not be meant for somebody who is so new to interacting with the system, but you put them there because the expert user can make use of them and do their tasks a little more. So this concept says flexibility and efficiency of use, and says we need to put accelerators for the sake of the expert user, but of course, again, we make sure that there is sufficient for the novice user to also do their work. So you find that there are certain things that the expert user utilizes, which the novice user does not have to use, but the novice user can still accomplish their goal at the computer. So consider the expert user and add, provide for accelerators, at least for the sake of the expert user. Now we talk about the user profiles, and mainly we talk about 3 user profiles. We talk about the novice user, the intermediate. Now what do you say that? Intermittent. I hope I'm say that word correctly. So we have now. Let me try to write there some of those words here. So there is a novice user. So the user profiles, we will call them. Sorry, because I don't want to open another page right now. But maybe let me just create some more space here and move away from this section. Sorry, I went way up. All right. Now I want to keep here because there could be something that we still need to. Don't want to go to the whiteboard at this point. And so I've lost it again. I think I pressed something and lost my space. All right. So for the sake of avoiding having challenges with this system, okay. So Nova is so we're talking about user profiles. Probably you have already come across this from a different reading or discussion from another unit. So user profiles, you normally list 3 of them. So there is the one called the novice user, or the novice, just normally just in the novice. The novice is a user who is just learning how to use a system. Maybe they are quite new to the system, so they are just learning. So they are very new to how the system works. So the novice user. Then we have intermittent frequent user. I hope I'm getting that word right. Is it intermittent? Now I have to, you have to check that. Check that. I think I'm forgetting intermittent. All right, check that. What doesn't come all the time? I'm missing that word. Intermittent. I think it's intermittent. I don't. Let's see. No. Intermittent. I'm still trying to see. Now it's showing there is a problem there. So check that. I'm forgetting this word. So this is intermittent frequent user. Okay. So that is one who is kind of in the medium of being able to use a system. Oh, sorry, I forgot to press the wrong button again. So this intermittent frequent user is one which like in the medium between the middle in terms of how they use the computer, the middle there between the novice and the expert user. So now that we have then the expert user. So let me just get back to this and we write that. So there is the other profile. Oh, I'm sorry for that. I'm always forgetting. I'm pressing the wrong button, which is causing me to lose my space down here. Sorry for that. But you can locate it quickly again here. All right. So the other one is a frequent user, of course. I mean, expert user. So you have the third user profile is a expert user. So with the expert user, of course, this is somebody that is quite experienced in using the system. And that's what we are saying, especially when it comes to computers, we need to add accelerators. Some things that the user, the novice, and probably the intermittent user, frequent user may also not be able to work with, but the expert user is quite at home. Like when we learn, of course, we keep learning. For example, when we use what we call the window control keys, we have control the not control but shortcut keys. You know, the shortcuts. Use Windows shortcuts using the keyboard. keys to move a little quickly. For example, when we want to save, instead of looking for the command to save, you just do CTRL plus S and you save your document. So those type of things what we are calling accelerators, which may be used by the expert user. Of course, even the intermediate frequent user should be catching up and be able to start using the accelerators. And so I think for now, that's what I would like to bring out. I think the others, as I said, they are already repeated, or not all of them, but some of them most of them are repeated from some things that you already said. Maybe you'll find maybe one or two. For example, maybe this one may not have talked about this one where we are bringing the concept of accelerators, and also this one about. Sorry, this is not 19. It's because I have been using this space. This I think was number 8, aesthetic and minimalist design, etc. up to the end. Even this one of help documentation. So of course, every research and other comes up with something that maybe there could be something that is unique, that is not appearing in the others, but quite a number of concepts are. They actually correspond, they match, and they are repeated by especially these three researchers and others that we have highlighted, Norman, Snyderman, and Usen. So look at these Snyderman's 8 golden rules, and use the 10 heuristics of good website design. So look at that, read these concepts well, that you can be able to explain, to mention them and explain exactly what they mean as far as interaction design is concerned. Now, class for today, that's all I wanted to highlight and do the presentation. I won't continue to the end of our 3 hours. But of course, for you, I would like you to look at the forum. There is a forum here, which I would like you to look at before you finally exit from the system or from the meeting. Well, of course, you can exit the meeting and go to the portal, and of course, go ahead and do the forum. Do the forum before you log out of the class time, so that that also is captured within the class time. The forum, it is just a very straightforward forum. So you look at it, it's based on the Snyderman's 8 golden rules. Now later on, I'll also add a short quiz for this topic, but it's not ready now. But I will add it so that probably by tomorrow it should be showing. Of course, sometime in the evening it should already be showing, but probably. So of course it shows, and you have the time. You could go ahead and do it before the end of today, but also tomorrow you can do it, the quiz. But this one, the forum, try to do your responses before you leave you log out of the system for this particular class. Now, for now, I would just allow a short moment of interaction, just in case there's a comment or a point of clarification that you'd like to raise as it relates to our today's discussion, but of course, any other that we have done before, or whatever may relate to your studies that you'd like to raise a comment, a point of clarification, or a question. So I will allow a few minutes before I completely get out of the meeting. So I allow that a few minutes for that. So go ahead and raise any issue that you would like to bring out, either for a discussion, of course, is a question or anything that you'd like clarified out of my presentation now, or even some other issues in the past that are important for your studies. Yes, I think the mics are also available if you want to raise an issue by mic. I think the mics are also available. You are free also to use the mic, but you can also just type a text at the chat. All right. I think I can go ahead and remove the share. All right. I think then we can call it a day for now for our presentation. Thank you so much for availing yourself for our today's session. So I'll let you go ahead and attend to the discussion forum for this topic. Now, this is a still topic. I think it's still topic 2. Topic 2. I've called it topic 2, session 3. So you'll be able to find as an area. Of course, you'll be the last area with the info, with any text or details at the unit portal. Should be able to see the forum. It should be written something to do with the session 2, topic 2, session 2 forum or something like that. Then you can respond to it. And once you are done with that, then you will be free to log out the system for today's class. As I said, I'll also add a short quiz just to add on activities on this, because I remember these activities are very important for indicating your participation with this approach of online studies, or doing our interaction through online, to indicate that you are having as much interaction with the course, even when it is online. So I will add a quiz which then you can respond to either at the evening or even sometime tomorrow. So otherwise, for today, that's all that I would want to bring out. And so once again, thank you for attending and participating in this particular session. And so for the lecturer, for now, I'll say goodbye and have a great remaining part of the afternoon and the evening. Goodbye.